welcome to the channel for my Premier League predictions. Game week 18. Game week 17 came with some shocking and unbelievable results. In game week 17, I got one game spot unpredicted, which was between Aston Villa versus Manchester City. I predicted a 2-1 victory for Villa in game week 17 and I got a spot unpredicted. Boxing Day edition Premier League game week 18, I'm looking out for spot on prediction with so much confidence going to this midweek fixture. So without wasting my time, my name is Andy Final. My like target for this video is just 100 likes. Like, subscribe, comment your predictions and your thoughts at the comment section. Without wasting much of your time, let's get into the game week 18 predictions. Yes, so to begin the first game in Boxing Day fixtures, the early kickoff is between Manchester City versus Everton. Looking at the league table, Manchester City at the moment, they are 7th on the Premier League table with 27 points out of 17 games, which is very shocking. Looking at Everton at the moment, they are now 15th on the Premier League table with 16 points. In game week 17, Manchester City lost 2-1 to Aston Villa in game week 17. Everton also got a 0-0 draw against Chelsea at the Goodison Park in game week 17. Going to this game at the Boxing Day is going to be an interesting. We know Manchester City, so far so good. This season they have not been in good shape and they are losing games here and there. But going to this game at Boxing Day, I don't think there is going to be anything new because everything in game 17, their game against Chelsea, all they went into that game to do was just to defend and get 1 point. I think there's nothing going to change. Looking at this Manchester City team who can't score more goals as they used to, it's going to be a very tough and interesting afternoon. So going to this game, I'm predicting a goalless draw, which will be a frustrating afternoon for Pep Guardiola and his boys. I'm predicting a 0-0 draw. Manchester City 0, Everton 0. Yes, so moving on to the next game is between AFC Bournemouth versus Crystal Palace. In game week 17, Crystal Palace lost 5-1 at Selhurst Park to Arsenal, and AFC Bournemouth also went to the Old Trafford and got a 3-0 victory over Manchester United in game week 17. Going to this fixture in game week 18 at the Boxing Day, this is going to be an interesting game. Looking at the league table, AFC Bournemouth at the moment, they are now on the Premier League table with 28 points out of 17 games. Crystal Palace at the moment, they are now 16th on the Premier League table with 16 points out of 17 games. Going to this game in game week 18 is going to be a tough and interesting game. I'm predicting AFC Bournemouth to get 2-1 victory over Crystal Palace. Bournemouth 2, Crystal Palace 1. Moving on to the next game at the Stamford Bridge is between Chelsea versus Fulham. This is a London derby, and well, going to this game at the Boxing Day is going to be an interesting game. Looking at the league table, Chelsea at the moment, they are 2nd on the Premier League table with 35 points out of 17 games. Fulham too is also now 9th on the Premier League table with 25 points out of 17 games. In game week 17, both Chelsea and Fulham drew 0-0. Chelsea drew 0-0 against Everton. Fulham also drew 0-0 against Southampton in game week 17. This game is going to be a tight game, but well, I'm predicting Chelsea to get a 2-1 victory over Fulham. Chelsea 2, Fulham 1. Moving on to the next game at the St. James Park is between Newcastle United versus Aston Villa. Looking at the league table, Aston Villa at the moment, they are 6th on the Premier League table with 28 points out of 17 games. Newcastle United at the moment, they are also 8th on the Premier League table with 26 points out of 17 games. Going into this game in game week 18 is going to be a tough and interesting game at the St. James Park. In game week 17, Aston Villa got a 2-1 victory over Manchester City, and Newcastle United also got a 4-0 victory over new promoted side Ipswich Town. Going to this game in game week 18 is going to be a tough and interesting game and in an interesting draw. I'm predicting a 2-2 draw. Aston Villa to Newcastle United 2. Yes, moving on to the next game is between Nottingham Forest versus Tottenham Hotspur. In week 17, Nottingham Forest got a 2-0 victory and Tottenham Hotspur also lost 6-3 against Liverpool in game 17. Looking at the league table at the moment, Nottingham Forest are now 4th on the Premier League table with 31 points out of 17 games. Tottenham Hotspur too at the moment they are 11th on the Premier League table with 23 points out of 17 games. Going to this game in game week 18 is going to be an interesting game. I'm predicting Nottingham Forest to get a 2-1 victory over Tottenham Hotspur. Nottingham Forest 2, Tottenham Hotspur 1. Moving on to the next game at the St. Mary's Stadium is between Southampton versus West Ham United. In game week 17, West Ham United drew 1-1 against Brighton. Southampton also drew 0-0 against Fulham in game week 17. Looking at the league table, West Ham United at the moment they are 14th on the Premier League table with 20 points out of 17 games. Southampton too at the moment they are 20th on the Premier League table with 6 points out of 17 games. Going to this game at the St. Mary's in game week 18, which is the Boxing Day, is going to be a very tough and interesting game. Well, I'm predicting West Ham United to get a 3-1 victory over Southampton. West Ham United 3, Southampton 1. Yeah, so moving on to the next game is between Wolves versus Manchester United. Looking at the league table at the moment, Wolves is now 18th on the Premier League table with 12 points out of 17 games. Manchester United is also 30th on the Premier League table with 22 points out of 17 games. Going to this game, Manchester United is coming from a 3-0 loss against AFC Bournemouth in game week 17. Wolves also in game week 17 got a 3-0 victory over Leicester City in game week 17. So going to this game is going to be a tough game for Manchester United, because Manchester United playing at Old Trafford against Bournemouth, you can see that even though Manchester United is a big team, but well, they are not performing up to their expectation, and I think Wolves in this game is going to be a top side for Man United. So going to this game, I'm predicting Wolves to get a 2-1 victory over Manchester United. Manchester United 1, Wolves 2. Yeah, so moving on to the next game at Anfield is between Liverpool versus Leicester City. Looking at the league table, Liverpool is on top of the Premier League table with 39 points out of 16 games. And in game week 17, Liverpool got a 6-3 victory over Tottenham Hotspur. Talking about Leicester City, in game week 17, Leicester City also lost 3-0 against Wolves, and they are now 17th on the Premier League table, 14 points out of 17 games. Going to this game at Anfield in game week 18 is going to be an interesting and a very tough game for Leicester City. So I'm predicting Liverpool to get a win over Leicester City. Liverpool 4, Leicester City 1. Yeah, so moving on to the next game after Boxing Day 27th is going to be between Brighton versus Brentford. In game week 17, Brighton got a 1-1 draw against West Ham United, and Brentford also lost 2-0 against Nottingham Forest in game week 17. Looking at the league table, Brentford at the moment they are 12th on the Premier League table with 23 points out of 17 games. Brighton at the moment they are 10th on the Premier League table with 25 points out of 17 games. Going to this game is going to be an interesting one, and I'm predicting this game to end in favor of Brighton. I'm predicting Brighton to get a 3-2 victory over Brentford. Brighton 3, Brentford 2. Moving on to the last game at the Emirates Stadium is between Arsenal versus Ipswich Town. In game week 17, Arsenal got a 5-1 victory over Crystal Palace, and Ipswich Town also lost 4-0 against Newcastle United in game 17. Looking at the league table at the moment, Arsenal is now third on the Premier League table with 33 points out of 17 games. Ipswich Town at the moment, they are also now 19th on the Premier League table with 12 points out of 17 games. This is where the surprise lies. I know Ipswich Town is a new promoted side, but well, going into this game, I'm predicting a high scoring draw. I'm predicting Arsenal to get a 3-3 draw against Ipswich Town. Arsenal 3, Ipswich Town 3. Yeah, so this has been my predictions for the Premier League Game Week 18, the Boxing Day edition. I wish you all a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. I know the coming year 2025, you are going to do marvelous and you are going to grow from strength to strength. Without wasting much of your time, I'm your boy Andy Fine. Until we meet in another video, bye bye for now.